Today's Evening First Alert weather show is brought to you by Bresky Siding.
And good Wednesday evening, Mid-Michigan. Chief Meteorologist Chris Easlick with your Wednesday forecast update. And no secret here what the story is as we move through the next several days. We are expecting some warm temperatures. Yesterday we touched the 40s. Today not so much, but at least it was close to average for those hoping to just not go back to the teens. And then as we go into tomorrow, I think we'll likely see a day that's very similar to today before we start our climb as we head towards the end of next week, or end of this week, and then into the weekend and into the start of next week. So it looks like everything is still on track here for the potential of getting up to about 44, 45 degrees on Tuesday and Wednesday. Still think there is an outside shot at seeing some temperatures that could approach 50, but a lot of that will happen depending on the track of a system that we are watching for next week. That could bring the possibility of both rain and snow. Rain, of course, would mean more of a warm system that comes through, but a shift to the south with that system, and we're talking about the potential for snow and maybe some of those temperatures that you see towards next week cooling down a little bit. But I still side, at least for now, with the chance that we are at least going to be in the 40s. What happens after that, I think, remains to be seen. What is the magnitude of that warm-up next week? I think that's the big question. I think we're getting there. The signs and the data have been pretty consistent. It's just, are we going to see those lower and middle 40s? Are we going to see middle to upper 40s? Or could we even potentially see warmer than that? One of our models today, and this is not something that I think is going to happen, but I just found it interesting, was the fact that the European model for Saginaw was projecting on Wednesday of next week the possibility of 60. Now, again, don't get too excited. I don't think that's going to happen. However, I think it's just a sign that they are picking up on something. They are picking up on the fact that we could be a little bit warmer going into next week. And I'll show you that in just a minute. But I did find this interesting. So I pulled this up earlier in our newscasts and wanted to talk a little bit about the winter so far. So when we're talking about meteorological winter, we're only talking about the months of December, January, and February. So I put that down at the bottom here. Now I know you can look at the snow season as a whole, which is generally October to May. But if you're just looking at winter as a whole, meteorologists do this to make sure that our records are fairly consistent from year to year and make sure that we're kind of on an even playing field with the seasons because, you know, you talk about the astronomical seasons, those can vary a little bit. Some years it's the 21st, some years it's the 23rd, others it's the 22nd, and over time you change those days around and things kind of get a little bit skewed. But if we just look at seasons from a monthly perspective, so December through February, it kind of evens some of that out, even though February does have that occasional leap year in there. But I thought this was interesting because a lot of people have told me, man, this winter has been a little tougher. This winter has me feeling a little exhausted by this point, and I'm ready to move on. Now, we get that feeling every February, it seems, but I feel like the sentiment is a little bit more this year. And so I went back and looked at the numbers, and these are the climate reporting stations that are in the TV5 viewing area. There's only 3. I think there should be more, just for the record. I would love to have one in a place like the Thumb. I would love to have one in a place like Mount Pleasant. I would love to have one in a place like Tawas. But unfortunately, all we have is Saginaw, Flint, and Houghton Lake. But I thought the numbers were interesting nonetheless, is that Saginaw and Houghton Lake both checking in at their 27th coldest winter through February 10th. I only went through February 10th. I know today is the 11th, but usually we wait until the end of the day until that the day that we're on gets included. So tomorrow we'll get the 11th, March 1st we'll get February 28th, if that makes sense. So up through February 10th, December 1st through February 10th, compared to the other winters that we have on record, which goes back until sometimes the 1880s. Sometimes, depending on the city, it's back in the early 1900s. But we're talking over 100 years of data here. Saginaw is 27th on the list, along with Houghton Lake, at their coldest winter on record. So not top 25, but top 30. And then Flint actually made the top 15 this year at 14th, the 14th coldest on record up to this point. Now, some of these numbers with the warm temperatures next week, if they come to fruition, I think we're going to see Flint probably fall out of the top 15. But at least at our current pace where we're at right now, Flint is a top 15 winter when it comes to the coldest temperatures that we have seen on record. Now, snowfall, I thought was very interesting. When we're talking about snowfall in these rankings, we're talking about the snowiest season. So where does it rank compared to some of the best snowfall seasons that we've had just from December 1st through February 28th? I thought this was a very interesting split. Flint is top 25, along with Houghton Lake. Houghton Lake doing a little bit better, but Flint at 23rd on the list, Houghton Lake at 17th. Saginaw's all the way down to 70th. So you've almost got 50 places between Flint's winter on record when it comes to snowfall versus Saginaw. Saginaw's only just for December through January and early February is at 70th on the list. So that just shows you how much things can be different in this area just from Saginaw to Flint, and just how sometimes that lake effect can really add up in an area like Flint when it's got that westerly flow that comes right across I-69, can really hammer some of those counties this time of year. Saginaw doesn't get that westerly flow lake effect. Saginaw typically has westerly lake effect to the north and westerly lake effect to the south, and it gets caught kind of in between. It's usually northwesterly lake effect or northeasterly lake effect that comes into Saginaw. So I think that could be the difference this year. So I thought that was very interesting. So let me know in the comments, do you think this feels about right? Do you think that it's been, or at least in your mind, the data's data, you can't change it. I looked at the numbers today, but do you feel like this matches up with what you felt? Not the worst, but also one of the better ones we've had recently? Or does it feel like this has been the worst and you're not going to listen to the data? That's up to you. But I just thought those numbers were relevant. And while you're kind of looking at those, I'll see what's going on with the comment section here. Good evening, Denise. Good evening, Linda, Sherry, 3 of our frequent flyers. Lori, also a frequent flyer, asks, with all the warm weather coming, will we have flooding? I don't think so yet. We've done a lot better with our drought going into this season. Let me see if I can find, I just saw the drought monitor right here. I'll pull that up right now. We've done a little bit better. We haven't seen the severe drought linger in as many places. It's still lingering in the western thumb. And again, this is a long-term thing. This is not, we got 3 inches of rain in October, and that's just an example, but this is not something where, hey, my lawn was pretty green as we ended the fall. No, this is going all the way back in some of these cases until last October, not 2025, actually 2024 is when some of those drought conditions started popping up. So if you're wondering, well, how in the world do we have a drought? That's why. It really has been lingering for that long. Now, with the active snow season that we've had going back into November, and that's where I think some of these other numbers could be skewed that I just showed you, as far as if you look at the whole snow season, not just the winter, you might have a little bit better of a result because we had that snow in November. We got off to a little bit of a quicker start. But some of that ended up eating into a lot of the drought conditions that we've had, but we're still abnormally dry. So that's a very long-winded way of saying, Lori, that I don't necessarily think flooding is a concern at the moment. I think we still have room to go. I think we still have a chance to absorb a little bit, but stay tuned. That's one of those things where you think things could be okay, and then you start seeing how things progress as the snow melts, how any of that ice on the water starts to melt, and sometimes things can go a little bit of a different way. I've seen it in both directions. You think you're going to get flooding, and we end up managing it a little bit better. I've seen situations where we think we're going to handle it, and as you get closer, you kind of run into that problem. I would say nuisance-type standing water is always a concern, but the fact that there's not a ton of rain in the forecast, I think helps tremendously. I don't think we're going to see widespread standing water or anything like that as far as anything other than just natural wetness from the snow melting, because we're not adding water on top. Good evening, Barbara. What about all the ice on the lake? Will it be safe for fishing? I say this with the always there caveat. You should always treat ice safely. But Lori, I think in the near term here, as we've gone throughout the last couple of days and going into the next couple of days, I think we're probably okay. We've built up a lot of ice and it doesn't change overnight. But I would say if we get the sunshine that we see this weekend and the warmer temperatures to go along with the sunshine, plus the warmer days next week, that's when I start to think that we'll see a bigger change. It's not going to have one day that was in the upper 30s to low 40s yesterday that ruins everything. It's just that repeated warming, and again, especially sunshine. Sunshine does not help. 33 in sun is not the same melting that ice as 34 and cloudy. The sun does a really good number on that. So I would say be careful always, but I would especially be careful the more of these days that we put together for anybody who's going out. Let's see. Linda says, I think we're all ready to move on from winter because of that Arctic outbreak. Yeah, that didn't make anything easier. If it were just in the 20s and 30s like it's been what it feels like the last couple of winters, that was a little bit easier to take. And Lori says she lives in the severe drought area. Yeah, so Lori, I would say I'm not concerned about flooding if that's the area you're in. It's going to take some time to really reach that stage again. As I'm going through the chat, I'll pull those forecast high temperatures back up. Zach's on the stream again. Is the warmth expected or normal this time of year, or is it a sign of things to come? Winters usually have a thaw. This is the thaw, Zach. We are not, we kind of talked about it last night on the stream. This is not permanent by any stretch. We are likely going to transition back to colder temperatures sometime next week, towards the end of the week, and I think towards the end of the month. I think we're going to be above average for a while. Above average doesn't mean 40s every day. But you see a lot of those 33s and 35s on Friday and Saturday of next week. Technically, that's above average. And so it doesn't always have to be the stair step you see towards Wednesday of next week. It doesn't always have to be that magnitude, but this is definitely one of our thaw periods. So let me see if I can take a look at the Great Lakes ice analysis. This link didn't work last night. We'll see if it works today. And to just show you how this season compares to average. And like I mentioned before, this is one of the better years that we've had in a while. Probably, I would say, the best year maybe since 2019. Their graphics are still not working tonight. That's very frustrating. Does 2025 work? Nope. That is very, very frustrating that some of the most recent images are not working. So 2020, it's only 2025 and 2026. How lucky is that? Very disappointing. All right, but that's kind of where things stand with that. Let's take a look at next week. And this could really determine the magnitude of our warm-up. See if this goes out far enough. It does not, so I got to pick another one. So we are expecting, let me pull up our computer screen here. We are expecting a system sometime towards the middle of next week. This is the European model. You've got Michigan right here if it's tough to see. If you can see my mouse. And this is Wednesday afternoon. Notice it's a pretty broad system. We've got an area of rain. We've got an area of heavy snow. We've got an area of mix. And right now, that area of low pressure, you see it here, is moving on to the north. And typically when the low pressure tracks to the north of us, it drags some of that warmer air into the area. And so that's the solution that I think is a little bit more favorable for now. But if we jump over to the American GFS model, at least earlier today, that was a little bit further to the south. So instead of going to the north through the UP, Lake Superior, Ontario, this was taking the low a little bit closer to Chicago. And so what that did was it brought the snow down a little bit farther south and essentially cuts the TV5 viewing area in half. But then the Canadian model was similar to the European model, where it takes that area of low pressure a little bit further to the north. We stay on the warm side of the system and we get a little bit more rain. Another thing I'll show you here is that I think means we can't rule out snow just yet, is this is the ensemble of the European model. And what this image right here shows you is all of the possibilities, all of the possible locations that the European model says that storm system can track. Now, if I back up in time, when they're clustered like they are here, when they have a very close solution like this, you feel pretty confident that that's where that storm system is going to be, because every single run of the European model has the same solution almost. But the further out in time we go, the more possibilities there is. So you see how they're kind of clustered here, still a little bit better, but then we go farther out in time and the solution spreads out. And so what that tells me, so I'll fade back to our temperature here, what that tells me is that we do not have a consensus as to where that storm system is going to go. Now, I think there is a lean towards the warmer solution. I think there's a lean towards some of that going to our north and keeping us more on the rain side of things, or potentially even just a drier side of things. But I do not think that that's set in stone yet. Good to see James on here from Mayville. Linda wants it to go to the north. Zach does not. So we've got two split camps there. But that is something I'm watching for next week. I think that is what, I think that's the big story. We're probably not going to get a consensus on that until, gosh, I would probably say, probably not until Sunday. And it might even be into Monday. So stay tuned on that. Here's a look at the ice coverage. Updated this today. 51.7, which is lower than our 58% yesterday. But still a pretty healthy coverage there. If I look at the Great Lakes ice analysis, I can't tell you how it compares to the previous years because the site is not working, but I can pull up. I think I can pull up the ice thickness here. And I can show you how thick the ice is. So this is the graph that's put out by the U.S. Coast Guard. And the estimated thickness is this side right here. And so where you've got this crossing pattern right here that kind of looks like just a bunch of X's together, that has an ice thickness of what appears to be about 12 to 28 inches out on the Saginaw Bay. Now, it's impossible to assess the ice in every single location, but that still indicates a pretty healthy coverage. In the red area further out into Lake Huron, it's about 6 to 12. So even farther out, we've got about 6 to 12 inches of thickness. That is probably not uniform in all locations. It's probably not all uniform on the Saginaw Bay either, but the Saginaw Bay clearly doing better. And a foot of ice concentration, that's going to stick around for at least a couple of days. Trying to see if there's anyone who has anything thicker. It looks like we've got an area right around the, oh boy, what am I? what am I missing here? Why am I blanking? The up near Copper Harbor, that peninsula, Keweenaw Peninsula. I don't know why I was blanking on that. I know that peninsula, the Keweenaw Peninsula. Looks like we've got thickness that's greater than even 28 inches up that far. So we're doing pretty good that far north. That's not good. Not good streaming to have dead air there for a minute. So anyway, that is the stream for tonight. Unless anybody has any quick questions, we'll of course have more streams this week. But I thought some of that info earlier tonight about the length of or where this winter stands compared to others, I thought that was pretty interesting. I knew it wasn't the worst, but I thought Saginaw being at 70th on the list for snow on record up to this point in the winter was pretty surprising. While I give some time for questions, maybe I can look and see if we included November in that too, what that would do. Let me pull up the 7-day while I do that. So not that we're going to skew the data, but we'll just include the entire snow season and see what happens. See if that changes things for Saginaw. So we'll start 11/1 through 12/10. Remember, or excuse me, 2/10. Remember that 2/11 is not included just yet. Snowfall. We're going to go Saginaw area, and we'll see where it ranks. 2026. Where is it on the list? Struggling to find it. 33rd. So if you just include winter, Saginaw's at 70th on the list. If you include November, we're at 33rd. We've got 30.6 for the entire snow season, but just for the winter, we're down at about 20. So we picked up about 10 inches of snow early in the snow season, and then we've kind of leveled off here gradually over the last couple of months. So frankly, we've averaged about 10 inches of snow per month, which is pretty good compared to some of the winters we've had recently. But February so far hasn't really been kind to Saginaw. So anyway, that's the 7-day. We're watching Wednesday of next week. We'll see what happens with that system. Like I said, we won't get a consensus until we get probably closer to the weekend. But as soon as we do, we will, of course, let you know. I appreciate all of you for joining as you always do. It makes this worthwhile. And we will see you next time. Until then, have a wonderful night.